Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and I am wearing a plaid sports jacket from the disco era tonight because in our episode this evening, just like a song from the disco era, everyone's a winner. We've got Tamia Smith. She won a prestigious award here at Eastern New Mexico University. We've got Kelly Lee, the head coach of Greyhound football. Of course, he is the coach that led us to our only victory in a football bowl game ever. I'll finish up with a winter-themed overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. Greyhound track and field had a good showing last weekend in Canyon, Texas. We had 3 individual winners. Lauren Griego won the steeplechase. A young lady by the name of Mahal Lebrun, she won the 400 intermediate hurdles. We also had Alex Williams, who won the javelin. In the sport of rodeo, Greyhounds were competing in their last meet of the semester, and Shacey Marr had the best finish. She finished 6th in the breakaway. The team finished 7th overall. Greyhound baseball only won 1 game last weekend, but that was good enough to keep them in the hunt for a Lone Star Conference postseason berth. And the softball team didn't play last weekend, but they're still in the hunt for a postseason berth. Well, that will finish up an Eastern recap, so we'll clear this out and we'll bring in our first guest, Tamia Smith. Right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we bring back to the set of Sportslook Tamia Smith. And Tamia, since the last time we had you on, you have been elected the student body president. You won the Lone Star Conference indoor season in the shot, and you were chosen the greatest female athlete at Eastern New Mexico University. So congratulations, congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, looking at it, maybe it's an impossible question to answer, but if you had to say that one of those honors was slightly more important, is there, or are they all equally cool in their own way?
I think they're equally cool on their own way. Like, it shows my athletic side, but also shows my business side. So it's like I'm working my talents on the field, but I'm also working my brain in other places. So it's a lot, but I can't say which one's better. They're all great in their own ways.
Were you involved in student government when you were in high school, or is the running for president kind of a new thing for you?
I wasn't. In high school, I just did sports. So I came to Eastern, and I kind of was in Chief Malden's class, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about like joining student government? And so I joined, and I kind of just been in it for now, and then it sparked me like, hey, like, what if I like kind of go to the top? So I worked my way into the different positions, and now I'm here, so.
And what was the biggest thing that you learned about being the president of the student body, the thing that was most unexpected when you decided to run?
How much I would be involved, like not in just the students, but faculty, staff, the chancellor, like going to Santa Fe for legislative. I had no idea that was in my area. I thought I was just speaking for the students and like maybe here and there debate on some things, but it's totally different.
And of all the things that have happened since you've been president, what's the one thing that you're most proud of?
Being able to collab with other student governments in New Mexico. We're working on supporting on the Opportunity Scholarship. So we've been in contact with Highlands, Westerns, New Mexico State, UNM, just all getting together so we can fight for all our students.
Well, obviously, as you pointed out, you were a student athlete in high school. You came to Eastern New Mexico University, and you probably had expectations for yourself, but did you ever dream that you'd someday be the Lone Star Conference champ in an event?
No, like, this is the furthest I've ever thrown. I really got into track not knowing that it was just something that I was kind of good at, but just did it for fun. But now, like, I got really competitive. And last year I had a rough season, so I didn't finish pretty high. So going to this season, I just wanted to move at least into the top 5. And at conference, I threw that big throw, and I even shocked myself. Like, I saw it on the screen, and I was like, oh, I threw that? Like, it was very shocking. it was great, but I never expected to be the winner.
Well, obviously, for people that are familiar with track and field, they're going to just tune us out for a second and say, we already knew this. But for people that really aren't familiar, winning something like the shot put, there's a certain amount of strength that's involved, there's a certain amount of technique, but there's also a mental component. And if you had to say that there is one of those three aspects that you're particularly strong in, what is the best thing about you as a thrower?
My mental. For sure. I have the strength, of course, but mentally, if you're not in it, you could throw a bad throw. If you're thinking about bad throws, that's where you're going to throw. If you go into a series, a lot of people don't realize that in throws, you have 3 in prelim. So you throw 3, and each time you get a new throw. If I have a bad throw, I can't keep dwelling on that one. I have to put that somewhere else and go out for the next one.
And in some ways, that makes it easier than like the sport of golf, where if you hit a bad drive, you're in the rough and it might take you 3 or 4 shots. With the shot, you just put that beside and, hey, got a fresh throw to get off.
For sure. When I think about it, I always tell myself, like, it only takes one. It only takes that one big throw. So even if I scratch the first 2, I still have a third one. That's the one I'm going to get it on.
This year is obviously different because we have a new head coach. Josh Harden is the head person. And what's different about track and field with Josh as the head coach?
The spirit. I mean, we were in a slump, and I saw the team going in that slump. And when he came aboard, he makes sure that we're supporting each other. A lot of people, track is very much individual sport sometimes, and you're not really known, like the throwers stick with the throwers, the sprinters stick with the sprinters, distance. But he makes sure that we're all supporting each other. We're always around each other. No matter if that's not your event, you don't really think it's cool. Oh, well, he's like pushing you over there to support your team. So it's really nice to have a coach that wants everyone to support us. Even taking us to support other sports, we have to get out there and support ENMU as a whole, and he does a great job with that.
I think probably the best proof of that is that last weekend you were competing in a track meet at Canyon. The weather conditions were a little inclement, to say the least, and we still had quite a few personal bests that day. So obviously he's getting kids to perform at a high level.
Oh, for sure. At that meet, it was really, really cold, and that didn't stop us. Like, we were like, we're still gonna go out here, and you could see other teams were leaving because it was cold, and we weren't. Like, this is our track. This is how we're gonna get out here and go. We don't care what's in our way. We're gonna break that barrier and push through.
And obviously, it was kind of a nice occurrence from what you were telling me before we went on camera, was that you found out that you had been selected as the greatest female athlete at Eastern New Mexico University on the bus ride home.
Yes, we kind of were just on our way back, and they were like, the banquet's tonight, but we had 2 athletes, myself and Tim, were named as the greatest athletes at Eastern, and it was an honor. It was really great to see that one female and one male both came from track. So I haven't seen that since I've been here, and it was shocking. I didn't even know until the bus ride, so people were congratulating me, and I was like, on what? Like, I didn't do anything this week,
Well, to me, looking at your record, looking at the shot put, it's like every week you break your own record. So it's been very commendable. I mean, to go in the record books once is amazing, but to keep going. And so what has, I mean, once you hit a record, it might be like, okay, I've established the record, but you keep trying to get better. So what's motivating you?
Myself, I'm competitive no matter if it's one person in it or 2 people. Like, I always say, just because I have the record doesn't mean I was perfect. Doesn't mean it was the best throw ever. I still have more to improve on. So that's why I push every week. I usually don't expect myself to have a personal record each meet, but when I do, it's great. But that tells you that I'm always pushing myself for better. I never want to feel content. When I feel content, I feel like the job is not done.
Looking at it, obviously, you would have to be the favorite going into the outdoor Lone Star Conference track and field championships because you won the indoor. And for some people, that might be too much pressure. They might wilt under that type of limelight. But you seem like the type of young lady, it's like, yeah, I'm good. And until somebody beats me, I'm the best.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it is very nervous. Like, you coming in as a champ, everyone expects you to be the champ again. So I have to like block all that out because if I focus on that, then I'm not going to be the champion again. I'm pushing myself a lot. I even talked to Coach Harden the other day about this. Like, if I keep focusing on it was great to have. I won. Thank you. But now I have to focus on outdoor. Indoor and outdoor are two different environments, two different mentals for me, at least. So I can't really focus on that right now. Like I have to focus on being the best again.
We talked about the fact that one of your teammates, Tim Frederick, was the greatest male athlete of the year, and he actually got to run in the national championships for the indoor season. How close are you to qualifying for the outdoor championships?
Right now, I think I'm sitting at 21 or 31. I can't remember, but I have to hit at least a 14.4 meters to qualify in the top 16. So I'm pushing. I'm really pushing myself to get a Big Thrower conference. And if I hit that, then I will be competing at the nationals.
And we will point out for people that don't know, unlike other sports where it's just like if you win your conference, you get to go to the NCAA playoffs. Track and field, there are marks that you have to hit.
Yes. Last year I won indoor, but I didn't compete at nationals because I was nationally ranked, but they only take the top 16. So even though I was nationally ranked, doesn't mean I'm going to compete at the national level.
Well, Tamia, looking into the future, a couple of weeks, you are going to be graduating. And what is in the future for Tamia Smith?
I am going to grad school here at Eastern in the fall and, start grad school. Then probably midway through grad school, I'm going to apply to different police departments and start my career in law enforcement.
Well, Tamia, as I pointed out the first time we had you on, I actually had the pleasure of having you as a student. And it's been just a pleasure to watch you academically and athletically. So congratulations on the success you've had and best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, well, that will wrap up our first interview segment. So what we'll do is we'll clear this out and we'll bring in Kelly Lee, the head coach of Greyhound football, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a privilege to bring back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Greyhound football, Kelly Lee. And Coach, it seems like just part of the old routine, but there was a little bit of a gap between the last time we talked about spring ball and when we're talking about spring ball now. What was the same? What was a little bit different this time?
Well, a lot of learning going on. And, we got to the end of spring ball and you could see some of that learning come to fruition. Kids started playing faster with more confidence in the scheme, and that's a good thing. You could kind of start putting the pieces together and seeing who's going to be a good player, what roles can different guys play in your system. So very productive for evaluation purposes.
We talked about the fact that normally in years past, we did spring ball earlier in the spring semester. We had to do it later this time. Are you going to go back to the earlier moving forward, or did you kind of like the later?
No, I like the early. I like the early because right now we're getting done and we go right into testing, and then you have dead week finals, and you don't really have any real hard strength training going into your summer. But it was a necessity. Give our coaches time to get here, give them time to learn the scheme going into spring ball. But I think next year we'll do our recruiting, we'll get into February and get it rolling early. And I like that in case you get a kid injured, then you have that extra time to heal up and gives your coaches time to get out and recruit and the kids time to get back in the weight room.
Speaking of coaches, we've had a chance to get to meet some of your coaches, but a fairly recent addition to the coaching staff, here again, a guy that was here at one time, and we'd like to welcome back Ben Langford.
Yeah, really excited to have Ben back. Ben was with us as a player, graduate assistant, full-time coach, left, served our country in the Army, and got out right at the time we had an opening. So he called me just wanting to know if I knew of anyone looking for a coach. You want to get it? I had said, I'm looking. And so hired him pretty quick, and I'm really excited about that.
I've never asked you this question, and I'm curious, is there one thing that, because obviously your coaches are their own individuals, but is there one thing they all have in common?
No, I don't think there's anything that they all have in common, but I do think we want to have coaches that have high character and integrity and are going to build relationships. You know, coaching is about relationships. So if you're building relationships with the other coaches, with the players, you're probably going to be pretty good at doing your job, and you're going to be effective as a coach. So that's a trait that we really look for when we're getting coaches, is people who can build those relationships.
When you were hired, you obviously had to introduce yourself. But some of the players are still,
Right.
they're
Yes,
guys that you had
yeah.
recruited. But for the new guys, you had to introduce yourself to them. You had to explain your expectations. But I'm interested, did they have expectations? Were there things that they wanted to see you do as a head coach?
Oh, I'm sure there was some. You know, we talked to some of the older players about some things, that we could maybe do different, or things that they liked. But, at the end of the day, as a coach coming in, those players need to be a lot more concerned what you think about them than what they think about you, And so we put some challenges to them and outlined our expectations. And to their credit, they've done a great job of meeting those expectations. I'm super proud of the kids for that.
Obviously, you would hope that everybody, and I had the privilege of actually listening to you give a motivational speech on Saturday night when you were the featured speaker at the Greyhound Club banquet. So I was highly motivated, and you would hope that everybody is.
Yeah.
But there are some players, it's like, okay, if I've got that player, I'm definitely making progress. So who were the key early kids that bought in, that have helped to bring everybody else along with them?
Yeah, I think there was some of the veterans, the older kids, and when I say older, we really have some older kids, because we've had redshirt guys and COVID and extra years. So you're talking about fifth, sixth, even in one case, seventh year. So Kevin McCracken, Hunter St. John, Zarian Meander, Colby Russ, Brock Thedford, a host of those guys have really done a good job of kind of set an example of the culture we want to have, and meeting those expectations and letting them be an example of those expectations.
And I'm curious, as far as the players that you did not recruit that were part of the squad, who were the early buy-ins from that group of individuals?
Well, I think our defensive line is a unit. There's some of the guys we'd recruited, some we didn't, but I think that unit really bought in, has put in extra effort to a man, like the whole unit. And we tested today. We were running some 40s and doing some testing, and they tested well. So, they did well on the field. They did well in the weight room. Now they've done on the field. And I think that's a testament to that group as a whole. I think they've really bought in and kind of led us on our charge moving forward.
One thing that I was impressed with, we had our green and silver scrimmage on Friday night, so it was a Friday Night Lights experience. Yep. And at halftime of the contest, you gave out individual awards, and we gave a special mention to your strength coach, Corey Bell. And Corey's an intense guy, and it's like some people might be a little bit like not really my guy, but man, when he was introduced, there was an immediate approval from your players. So he's obviously making strides.
Yeah, he does a good job, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception that people have gotten soft to discipline or not receptive. I really think that kids really still want it, and it just takes them a while to understand that you're going to coach them hard, but you're going to love them harder, And I think with Coach Bell, he coaches them hard, but they know that he's going to make them better, and that's what he's there for. And they see that with his work ethic, and it aligns with our program. So it's a great fit, and it's really, you feel really good as a coach when you got a guy like that running your strength and conditioning program.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the green and silver scrimmage. There are obviously a number of ways that you can approach the culmination of spring ball. Why did you go with the format that you did for that game?
Yeah, that's pretty much a product of we just don't have our numbers aren't where they've been in the past, and we had enough that we could have divided up and played a game, but we would have been stretching some kids really thin. We'd had a lot of kids taking every snap for their side, and so you do that, and then you worry about injuries when they get fatigued, or you do that and you shorten it really down. So now you've divided up, but you're not really playing a game, and they barely get a taste. And so we felt like if we did some situational stuff, we could get a lot of work, and we could kind of control the pace of it and let kids get rest. They're still taking the same amount of reps, but they're getting rest. And before we kind of went into more of a normal game, and I think it worked out really well because we got out of there without any serious injuries. I think we had a sprained ankle and a knee got twisted a little bit, no major injuries, which, you cross your fingers when you go through a spring game that happens.
So obviously going into an event like that, there are certain things that you think are going to happen, and sometimes they do happen that way. Sometimes something totally different happens. So what was the one thing you thought was going to happen that you did see on Friday night?
Well, I expected us to do pretty well in the green zone goal line portion of the scrimmage because our offense is built that way. We can have that mindset of only needing to get 2.5, 3 yards because we're going to go for it on fourth down. So that was good, and that was an expectation. When we got into the more traditional scrimmage, I thought our defense did an outstanding job of, now they gave up a couple long drives, but when they didn't give up, there was a lot of 3 and outs. And I think 3 and outs are probably one of the most underrated deal in football. People look at defense a lot of times. They look at scoring, they look at yards, red zone, third down, and all those things are important. But when you get 3 and outs, that's pretty demoralizing for the offense, and it puts the other team's defense right back on the field. One, without a chance to rest. 2, without a chance to make adjustments. So it was a negative thing that our offense didn't make those first downs, but it was a positive thing that the defense, when they were getting stops, they were getting them right away. And I think there was 4 3 and outs, and those can really change the game. Those were big. I was glad to see that our defense was able to do that.
There's obviously always one individual that overperforms, that it's like you're expecting a performance at this level and they play at this level. So if you had to say there was one kid on each side of the ball that really stepped up his game, who would that be?
Well, I think in the spring game, Andre Jones, receiver, had a really good redshirt freshman. I think he caught 8 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown, had a great day. Defensively, I felt like Talon Sanders from Roswell played really well. Made some big tackles, gave great effort. I really thought he flew around the field and looked really good. And there was a lot of guys that played well, but those are 2 guys that kind of stand out for me in the spring game.
When the end of the semester comes and kids go to their homes, do you send them off with like, this is what I want you to do, and this is where I expect you to be strength-wise when you come back to Portales?
Yeah, I think they get workouts and they got to do on their own, but we really try to get our old players back as soon as summer school starts, which is, I believe, June 5th this year. So our expectation is that most of our young men, it's all voluntary, but if it's important to them, you know what I mean? The rent in Portales isn't too expensive that they can't get a summer job. They can pay rent, eat food, and train. And what I pose to them is, if you think that you're going to go home and become as good a football player as you would if you stayed here, trained with Coach Bell, with your teammates pushing you, then you're tricking yourself. You know what I mean? Or maybe football's not as important to you as you think. So most of our kids will be back June 5th, our older kids, and they'll be training with Coach Bell. I think in July now we can start doing some stuff with them. If they request workouts, we can do some training, which is new, more one-on-one type stuff. But for the most part, they're with Coach Bell, and he'll be training them. And I know he's excited about this time where he gets all their time. When he has them this time, we've got football time, we've got other stuff. In the summer, it's really his time with them, and I'm sure he's really excited about that. And seeing the gains we made this spring, I expect some more big gains in the summer.
Well, Kelly, it's a pleasure to have you back here at Eastern New Mexico University. I can't wait. August 31st, Greyhound Stadium, playing our in-state arch rivals, New Mexico Highlands.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. 6 p.m. kickoff Thursday night. Doesn't get any better than that.
All right. Well, Coach, congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. That will wrap up our interview segment of Sportslook. So what we'll do is we'll clear this out and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. In the movie Talladega Nights, John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell play NASCAR teammates. And one day, John C. Reilly says to Will Ferrell, "You know, I'd like to win a race for once." And Will Ferrell looks at him and says, "Well, I win every race, and there can't be two number ones." And John C. Reilly looks at him and says, "Yeah, because that'd be an 11. Well, it turns out Will Ferrell was incorrect because you can have two number ones, and we found that out at the Athletics Awards banquet held by the Greyhound Club last Saturday night because we had two young ladies that won the Greatest Female Greyhound Athlete of the Year award. We had Tamia Smith, but we also had Brooke Ledger from softball. We had no such problem with the greatest male athlete. That went to Tim Frederick, a guy that got to compete in the NCAA Division II championships in indoor track and field. And I'm here to tell you that if he had been in the movie Talladega Nights, he would have won the foot race at the end over Sacha Baron Cohen and Will Ferrell. Well, that will wrap up in overtime, and that will wrap up an episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank my guests. We had Tamia Smith from Greyhound Track and Field, and we had Kelly Lee from Greyhound Football. I had a new floor director, Ms. Page, doing a great job of running things for us tonight. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.